for this specific segment in location and transportation, lead want us to ensure that the people living or working or in that building will be able to locate not just transportation but quality transportation. So regarding to the public transport, so you have two numbers here, and those numbers are pretty good because it's the same numbers that we already learned in the in the video before, which are 400 meters and 800 meters. Again, same numbers. So 400 meters on quarter of mile for transportation like buses or streetcar stops. So those 400 meters go in a straight line from my building to the bus stop. No, it doesn't go like that. It has to be walkable, because if you have a straight lane from your building to the bus station and that straight lane in 400 meters, but in reality you're going to need to walk 2 kilometers, that doesn't work like that. You can't claim those points. And the other number that you're going to need to keep in mind is 800 meters. 800 meters for large transportation with rail, with like the subway or like ferry, is that is the case. What else we need to pay attention in this in this segment for this category? That at least not just quality transportation, but also we're gonna need a certain number of trips happening during the day, during the week. 72 trips during the weekdays, and at least 40 trips during the weekends. A trip is count the bus or the transportation going both ways. You can't count like one trip if the bus is just going in one direction. So that's something that you're gonna need to uh, think at the moment of the exam, or if you are working in one of those projects to claim those points. To make sure that we are getting this point, bicycle facilities, we need to make sure that our building is connected in one of those two things: diverse uses or high quality transit. So, for diverse uses, means that actually the bicycle network is connected to at least 10 different venues like grocery stores, bank, parks, gym, etc. We need at least that by using our bike we can get to those different 10 different facilities. Means that any lane is adequate for this? No, that is not the case. Not any lane is adequate for this. So you're gonna need an isolated lane just for the bikes, and not just that. That lane needs to be at least 180 meters minimum from your building. That means that everything is connected. So, and everything is connected 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers. No, that's not the scope. Everything needs to be connected at least 4.8 kilometers in radio, and everything needs to be accessible by bike. If you can't make it by diverse uses, you should make it by high quality transit. So, same thing, everything needs to be at least 3 miles or 4.8 kilometers from at least 180 meters from your building. And from there, you're gonna need a dedicated bicycle lane to get to those high quality transits like bus, meter, subway, uh, trail, etc. Now, the second point that I'm gonna need to be aware to getting that point for bicycle facilities is how I'm gonna keep those bike storage for the people who are visiting or who are occupying my building. So there are two different rules for visitors and occupants. So for visitors, you're gonna need to have at least 2.5% of peak visitors spaces for your bike. Means that if you have 1,000 peak visitors per day in your building, which means you're gonna need at least 25 places where to storage your bike. If your building is too small, and let's say you peak visitor of your building is only 50 person, so at least you're gonna need four places to storage those bikes. Those storage needs to be at least 30 meters from from any main entrance, which means that they shouldn't be behind of your building where no one is aware. It has to be in a place where everyone can see it. And the other rules are for the people who are actually occupying your building in a daily basis. In that case, what you're gonna need to do is to have at least 5% of storage for the total amount of people who are occupying your building. Same rule, if your building is too small, you're going to need at least four places for it. But the difference between visitors and occupants is that for occupants, you're going to need a lock room or a monitor area, which means it has to be covered and weather protected. If my building is non-residential, I'm going to need to be aware that I need to calculate something named full-time equivalence, and there is no math difficult for the lead green associate exam. However, if you want to have a 100% score, it is necessary that you learn those concepts. So we're going to do some maths. But before that, it is important for you to know that if your building is not residential, you're going to need showers. Those showers need to be paired with lockers, and those showers needs to be accessible for physically for the occupants. Let's do the math. Now let's go to a simple example on how to find out what is FTE. Basically, the formula is at the top is the number of employees full time by their hours that are working full time plus the number of employees that are working part time multiplied by the number of hours that they are working divided by 8. Simple like that. Then we have in this case 40 full-time staff, which are working 8 hours per day. 40 multiplied by 8 is 320. And we're gonna add 20 part-time interns, and we're gonna multiply that by 4, which is 80, which means in total I have 400, 400 hours divided by 8 hours. And then I have 50. Uh, 50, that's my FTE number. And we're gonna use this number for the shower requirement. Now let's calculate the bike racks that we need. So in this case, we have a retail center. It has an FTE of 10 staff, but a high peak transit of 150 shoppers. So we're gonna measure the peak users. So peak users will be the FTE plus the number of transit people or visitors. So in this case, it is 10 plus 150. We have 160 peak occupants. And then what is the goal? The goal is to have 5% of those spaces uh, with drugs. So in this case, we're gonna need 160 multiplied by 0.05, which is 8 spaces in total that we're gonna need.